Welcome back to another episode of Cathedral Chats. My name is Father Jacob Thoma, and I am the brand new associate here at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Rosary and St. Mary's Star of the Sea, which technically makes me the brand new host of Cathedral Chats. And so for today's episode of Cathedral Chats, we'll be doing an interview with our new pastor and rector, Father Seth Gogolin. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so who are you?
Father Seth Gogolin, the new rector at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Rosary and pastor at St. Mary's Star of the Sea. That's who I am.
Excellent. So how many years have you been a priest, Father Seth?
Sure. I was ordained June 22nd, 2012, so 11 years.
Awesome. So a decade plus one.
That's right.
So what are the parishes that you have served at?
Oh boy. Should have written them down. Started as an associate, much like Father Jacob is here for our two parishes. I started up as an associate in Ely, Tower, and Babbitt. I was there for 2 years. And then I served in the parishes in Nashwauk and Coleraine. And then I served in the parishes of Grand Rapids and Cohasset. And then I been in Duluth for the last 3 years, serving beginning at St. John's in Woodland and St. Joseph's in Gunnison. But then a year later after that, the cluster changed and I stayed with St. John's, but became pastor of St. Benedict's. And now here we are at the Cathedral and St. Mary's Star of the Sea.
Excellent. So who are your favorite saints?
Oh, goodness. So three come to mind that I go to regularly. St. Ignatius of Loyola, St. Therese of Lisieux, and then St. Andrew the Apostle.
And is there any particular reason why
Good question. Yeah. I think they've come at certain points in my life. So I've had a devotion to St. Andrew for quite a while, as that was my home parish in Brainerd. And also I've just always been really touched deeply by him bringing his brother Simon Peter, to the Lord. And so that desire in my life to be able to bring others to Jesus. St. Ignatius, became devoted to him during my time in seminary. I was down at the Institute for Priestly Formation in Omaha, Nebraska for a summer assignment. And it's kind of a summer of learning how to pray more deeply. And they use St. Ignatius' spiritual exercises as the kind of the means to teach diocesan seminarians how to pray in that Ignatian method. So I've fallen in love with that sort of prayer, but also his life was changed so dramatically after kind of living a life of pride and self-seeking. He was hospitalized, and during that time, because there wasn't normal things that he would want to read, he was able to read the lives of the saints and the life of Christ, and he thought to himself, wow, I could do great things actually for the Lord. And that's certainly very inspiring to me. And then St. Therese of Lisieux has kind of popped up at different times in my life, in seminary, but then also in the priesthood. A lot of people early on in my priesthood had asked me to teach about St. Therese, which I knew very little about other than the Story of the Soul book, her autobiography, which I read back in seminary. And but just her great humility in saying, you know what, I can do a lot by doing something sort of little, right? Just loving those in front of you, making the choices, which seems small, but can really be deeply sacrificial.
Wonderful. And then, do you have any particular devotions that are near and dear to you?
Yeah, so almost doesn't seem like a devotion because it's so common, but the rosary, a daily rosary, is very important to me. And that's come from another devotion, which I do yearly, which is the total consecration to Jesus through Mary, the St. Louis de Montfort version. I think there's been many versions, especially over the last decade or so, that have come out, these kind of 33-day devotions. But that one has been life-changing to me. I started back in high school for the first time, and I've renewed my consecration each year, and my daily rosary has been a fruit of that.
Wonderful. And then tell us about your family. Like, you have a mom and dad, and...
Sure, yeah. So my parents, Jim and Patty, they live in Baxter. I always say Brainerd. Too many people don't know where Baxter is, but Baxter's growing quite a bit. That's where I was born and raised. They still live there. They're both retired public school teachers. And then I have 3 siblings, all married with children. My brother Mike lives here in Duluth, married to Stephanie. His 4 children, Levi, Olivia, Logan, and Lydia. And then my sister Rachel, married, lives in St. Joseph, next to St. Cloud there. Her husband Mike, and her 2 children, Christopher and Jacob. And then lastly, my sister Bridget, married, lives in Hopkins, one of the suburbs of the Twin Cities. Married, her husband is Eric, and 2 children, Aiden and Liam. Aiden and Liam are her 2 children. Sorry, Bridget. So yeah, those are my siblings, and so we're all in Minnesota. We see each other a couple times a year, probably. My brother more frequently, since we live together here in the city of Duluth.
That's right. And your brother cuts your hair, is that true?
My brother has been my barber for, oh my goodness, probably 25 years.
Wow.
When I was in seminary, obviously I had to get haircuts elsewhere. But since moving back as a priest, he's maintained that role once again. So hair looks okay. That's thanks to my brother Mike.
Excellent. And could you just tell us, like, briefly what your vocation story is, like how the Lord called you to be a priest and to be as awesome as you are?
I don't know about that second part, but I can answer the first part. Priesthood wasn't a thing that we ever talked about in my family. Vocations weren't something that were ever discussed. And I don't really remember, but they probably were, I just didn't pay attention. I don't really remember them being even discussed in like faith formation programs and things when I was growing up, until I got to high school. Then I do remember it more at that point. But I really didn't see priesthood as an option, not because we didn't talk about it, but I really just had this kind of silly thought that you had to be old and Irish to be a priest, because that's all the priests I experienced really until I was in high school. Then finally, when our parishes in Brainerd clustered together and they were large enough and they had an associate and all of that, I said, oh, wait a second. There are other priests that aren't old or Irish. And by the way, I'm so grateful for our Irish priests. They have done so much for our diocese, and I would point to them as a great example, actually, of what it means to be a priest. But anyway, moving on back to my vocation story. So once I saw that, it still didn't seem like I thought that was for me. I thought there would be some sort of, I don't know, more obvious vision or voice from God, like, Seth, I want you to be a priest. And I didn't have that. By the time I was graduating high school, I was dating a real great Catholic gal, and I was going to go to college for something I enjoyed and was pretty good at, computer networking. So I kind of just had my life planned out. And it was during that first year where I just felt really unhappy every morning when I woke up, and that it didn't make sense to me, because again, I kind of can check all the boxes for why things were going well in my life, relationship-wise, school-wise. Even I was in the best place I'd ever been with the Lord, going to daily mass regularly, beginning that daily rosary, confession on a regular basis, all these things. And yet I just kind of woke up with a pit in my stomach every day, and I couldn't figure that out. So thanks to Father Bill Scarridge, shout out to you, Father Bill, who was the associate there in Brainerd. He gave me this advice to just go to Jesus in adoration and say exactly what was on my mind. To say, Jesus, doesn't make sense. I don't understand why I'm feeling this way. I think I'm doing your will. What's going on? And some months passed of that prayer, and no answer that I saw as obvious anyway at the time, although looking back I can see. But when I went to go visit now Father Shane Sullivan, he graduated high school with me, and he was already in seminary. He went right out of high school into seminary. I went to go visit him down at St. John Vianney College Seminary. I went there, and it wasn't a conversation. It wasn't time in the chapel. It was simply walking into the doors of the lobby of the seminary, where I just felt all the weight and the kind of ickiness that I felt every day that I woke up. It just went away. I felt great peace, and so I knew that's where I had to be. took a little bit of time during seminary to figure out that, yes, the Lord was indeed calling me to the priesthood, but I knew I had to enter seminary the next fall, so things went from there.
Wonderful. And so I have it on good authority that you have a job at the chancellery. And so you are called a vicar general. So
right.
What is a vicar general?
Sure. So I'm a vicar to the bishop in all things in general, right? So as canon law says, I have the kind of the executive power of the bishop that he deputizes me to be able to do things or say things on his behalf. I need to be of one mind of the bishop, and so to share in his desires for the diocese and follow his lead in things. It is a fairly short section of canon law because basically the vicar general does what the bishop asks him to do. That's the most simplest way of putting it. So there might be different roles that the bishop asks me to take care of regarding our priests or things in the diocese that we need to have initiatives on. But it's whatever the bishop asks. I'm kind of the right-hand man for him, whatever he asks.
Wonderful. And so what would you say your favorite part about being a priest is?
Oh my goodness. Every day, probably if I'm going to be general first, then I'll get specific. In general, that every day is different. I mean, there's things I can count on, like my prayer time, and there's mass, and there's always going to be some sort of interaction in ministry. But that every day is just, you can never expect what's going to happen. And the Lord has so many beautiful surprises, even if at the time they seem like, okay, what's going to happen here? Or what, Lord, can I really take this one more thing on? The Lord has so many beautiful plans. So that the Lord is the one guiding the days, basically, I guess would be my general answer. But in specific, it's always been hearing confessions. I think confession has been such an important part of my own life. So being able to now be that minister to help others receive the Lord's mercy has been a beautiful part of my priesthood.
Wonderful. And so, do you have any hobbies, or what do you do for fun?
I like to play the drums. A few people know that, but very few. Now maybe more will know that. So I do have a set of drums here at the rectory, and so I do play those from time to time.
Wonderful. And then, what's your favorite food? What do you like to eat?
That's a really good question. And I want to be careful with this because I've been told from other priests when you say this, then you get just stockpiles of it. So I don't know. I like a lot of foods. I don't like mayonnaise, so maybe I'll go in the negative direction there. I don't like mayonnaise. But probably a go-to. I'm not so much of a sweets guy, more of a salt. So a good bag of chips is always nice. But if I'm really looking for a warm, salty snack, a pretzel with cheese would probably be the top thing.
Excellent. And what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Vanilla. It is the best. Father Michael Gary, pastor in Brainerd, and also a high school classmate of mine. He was a year behind me, and we entered seminary together. He often made fun of me for liking vanilla, and I would just say to him, well, one day you'll understand. It's an adult taste.
Wonderful. And if you had a message that you would want to give to your cathedral parishioners or something that you would want them to know about you or your time or vision here?
Well, I think the thing that I want you to know about me and my time here with you is that I love you, and I want to do everything I can to show you the love of Christ, to work with me and Father Jacob as we hopefully are leading you closer to Jesus. Take time and patience with us as well, especially for myself, to learn your names. Although I did read Father Jacob's bulletin article, and he also said to remind him of your names too. So I think we're both in the same boat. We have a lot of new people to learn, and so I'm just looking forward to being with you for many, many years to come.
Excellent. Thank you, Father. Well, there you have it, straight from the rector's mouth. Tune in next time for our next Cathedral Chat, where I'll be interviewing Father Jacob Thoma, our brand new associate. Hope to see you next time. Remember to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.